Hey everybody, welcome back. Next step on this Clark's axle, getting it back together. Centers together, so we need to put the sides in, final drives. So next thing is to get the seal in there and the thrust washer. And for whatever reason, they had this flat washer in there. Clean that up a little bit before I stick it in there. Goes in first, so we'll do that, then the seal, and then the thrust washer. Wire wheeled that washer off some. That just slides right in there, no driver necessary. I don't know if that's to try to maintain a certain amount of oil near the seal. I have no idea what its purpose is, but the bushing is not factory. Let's see. So next up is the seal, which is a 155 318A. See if I can. Made in Mexico. Once again, I got that from my Agco dealer. Cross-referenced it and really couldn't find it cheaper anywhere else, especially when you started adding in shipping. These seals had no sealant on them, so they're definitely getting the treatment. Next up is the bronze thrust washer, and used to be I would replace these just out of there's no spec in the Oliver book telling how thick they should be, but Agco is now wanting 50 bucks a piece for them. And fortunately, knowing the right people, Michael S, we'll call you Michael S, who works for a certain company that owns the rights to the Clark axle, was able to get me the specs on this, and it is supposed to tolerances between 0.151 and 157. I measured them all up. They were all within spec. 153 to 157 was what I found them all, and so I am not going to spend 50 bucks a piece on thrust washers that are in spec. So thank you, Michael, for that, because that saved me about 200 bucks. There's 4 of them all together. I need to get a punch, but you can see the dots there. They would kind of hit them with a stake, with a prick punch to stake them in place. Once the axle's in there and everything, they're not going anywhere, but get that driven in. I've had them before where things got really loose. The axle's hanging low, it ground on this, the bushing spun and worked into the housing, and really had to kind of stake them up to get them to stay in there. Fortunately, that is not the case here. I will put a little grease on that lip before I slide the axle in. There's that. Well, there's a couple things it's probably best to get on now before the knuckle goes on, because it's a lot harder to get them on and the seal is impossible to get on. I got this through a place in Idaho. They're online. Ordered them on like a Thursday or a Friday and had them here I think Monday or Tuesday. So there's a tapered edge to this to fit the ball shape here, so you want to get that on in the right direction. And then it also has a spring that goes around the outside. Generally I reuse the spring, unless for some reason it rusted bad or something, but let's see. Well, this goes towards the back. So it's one of those things, it's got a split in it. You can get that on without the knuckle. You can get that on without, or you know, with the knuckle on. But this has to slip over the ball. In order to get on there. It is a one-piece rubber seal. That is just the only way, and by golly, I got it on backwards already. Got that taper backwards. Now it's right. Yeah, that seats up better. Now let's try to get this spring in the groove. I guess it doesn't have to be in the groove at this moment. The felt seal that goes in here is split, so that can go on later. And there, I got the spring in there. Got it on the right direction. I think AGCO had them marked as on back order as well. So the biggest one is that rubber seal. You want to get that on before this knuckle goes on, or you're going to really have to stretch it and maybe cry. So now I think I can get the knuckle on, or trunnion, I think, as they call it. All right, I had to do some real work here on the farm and load out some corn, chase a sweep auger in the bin. So that's all taken care of, and now I can get back to this baby. And I'm gonna put some grease in here. And then I'm gonna set that trunnion on there. So this is the thrust surface that shaft goes against. So we want to pre-lube it. A little bit for the seal. I'll put some in the top here where the bearing goes, and the same with the bottom. The top one has a grease zerk and this metal cap in there to keep the grease in place to lubricate that kingpin bearing, which is a tapered roller bearing. Just like this. This is the bottom one. The bottom one does not have a grease zerk, and that's because all this grease from the CV joint is some of it's gonna get flung out. Gravity pulls things down. The bottom one stays lubricated just fine, is the short and skinny of it, because it's where all the grease collects. Let's see if the old Lucas Red and Tacky is tacky enough to hold that bearing up in there. It is. Awesome. This trunnion is the left and rights are the same casting, but once they machine them, they are different, because the hole is tapered here for the tie rod that is behind the axle and ties the two together. So I just always keep my left and right stuff separated and put them back where I found them. There's that. Here's the cap for the bottom. Now, when I took it apart, I just left the top one right in place. If you drop the bottom one out, you can swing it out, and so just one less thing to do, unless the bearing's bad or something like that. I've replaced one set of bearings on these before. They had worn right into the race. I mean, you think about it, they don't even turn 1 RPM. They just turn that little bit. But this one had gotten loose and just hammered away and really worked at the race, and so I replaced both the bearings. That was on the 1650. But on this bottom one, you know, once again, keep track of your shims. This one had no shims. On this bottom one, I'm gonna put some silicone on it because any grease that maybe separates a little bit, or if little oil does get past the seals, it's gonna work its way down through the bolt holes and this different stuff and leave a little puddle on the floor. And so to try to hopefully head that off, I'm just a little bit of RTV on there to hopefully prevent that from happening. Look how easy it turns already. There, finally squared up with the bearing and started going in. And now it's not aligned this way. Or maybe I wasn't quite lined up with the housing, I guess. I've got some silicone on the threads of the bolts. Got all the bolts tightened down. Turns easily, but now there's a slight resistance, which ain't bad. You don't want any looseness in those bearings, because they'll hammer away at the rollers in the races, and because most of the time they're just not turning. I mean, you think about it, this is your steering. So, okay, I got this one on backwards. Fortunately, it's split, so the one that isn't split, the rubber seal, I definitely got on the right way. The inside edge has got a taper to it to fit the spherical shape. This one we want with the indent facing in, because that's what holds the felt seal in, and it has to be inside of that one. So and I did it backwards again. I'm consistent. There. All right. Tweak it back so it sits in like that. Then we've got the felt seal, and it's got a bevel to the inside edge to fit the ball. So the rubber side goes in, but it's split, so it's easy to get on. That place in Idaho I was mentioning earlier has these as well for much less than AGCO. I will do a cost comparison. Boy, I should really have some bolts ready to go. Okay, originally they had a paper seal, thin paper seal along here. I just put some silicone on it. Not a critical dimension again. So I will do that and get my bolts ready. Okay, got the silicone. That should help hold that bad boy in place. We'll put the seal and the felt seal in. There's that piece has a split, so don't want to line the split and the felt up with that. So I will put the split to the felt facing directly up. Then we've got this retainer. We don't want to line the split up with that and the felt. That holds the rubber seal in. And then if I have enough hands, you don't want this split lining up with a split there. Just basically don't line up splits. You'll be fine. You can kind of tuck some of this stuff in there once you get the bolt started. It seems to be going pretty good. I had to say that out loud, didn't I? Now let's just get another bolt or two in there so it ain't flopping. Probably should have started with the bottom one. It's a little better. Today is April 7th, and when I'm filming this at the moment, and that means it's my good friend Mike's birthday. So happy birthday, Mike. You can rewatch this video throughout the year, and then it'll be your birthday any day you want it to be. Hope you have a great one, or had a great one, because by the time you see this, your birthday will have come and gone. You'll have to be waiting for the next one. Just making sure everything's tucked in there good. It's looking good. Now let's get some more bolts in there and we're going to draw it down. There's no need to seal the bolts that hold this retainer on. They are going to blind holes. Some of them are actually machined through the housing right there, but nothing that's going to let oil seep out. So you can just do those as they are. Oh, and I got to remember on the back side here, the stop block for the steering goes in, so I better grab that before I get those bolts in. And those should take a couple longer bolts than the rest. Before I tighten it all the way down, because that's going to add a lot more friction, kind of turn it back and forth and try to let those seals find their spot, their happy place. Yeah, that's better. Before I wiggled it and tapped on it a little bit, there was a pretty good gap there on that where the retainer halves come together, or the retainer split. Still looks like it might be hanging just a little low. Now there it is, tightened down. think everything's seated in good. Boy, that definitely adds some drag to turning it. Good tight seals are good. That way don't get water in there. These are more about keeping the elements out than keeping the grease in. So don't want water in there like what I found when I disassembled it. But from what I could see visually looking around, looks like everything is in the place. While I still had them loose and there's a gap in there, everything looked to be where it was supposed to be. This is the rubber seal from the place in Idaho. Maybe I'll do the Agco one on the other side just to see how tight that fits compared to this one from Idaho. But it's gonna work, I can tell you that much. Before I assemble the CV joint, I want to have this outer shaft spindle ready to go. And one of the things you see, the seal has cut a couple of grooves in there. That ain't good. She probably ain't gonna seal up too good that way. So I got a speedy sleeve, the 99363. And they always come with a driver. But it'd be nice if there was like a hollow driver, because I could, you know, if I had a slight lip, I could put a piece of metal or something over there for a shallow application. But more times than not, it's on some kind of shaft that I can't get to. And that's what grinds my gears. So anyways, it's going to go down here. I'm going to put some Loctite under there to help seal it, hold it, all that good stuff. And trying to figure out what I'm going to do to drive that baby on there without destroying it. There's the two of them together. I once again forgot to push the start button on the camera and didn't record driving that on. I used this plate here, just kind of kept working my way around. Put the Loctite underneath. Seemed to work pretty good. It's on there, and as I was saying, I don't think this lip is going to, normally it's etched, or a scribe line there where you can break that off. But I don't think that's going to interfere. I'm trying to get it off. I can't drive it on any farther once I break that off, so I think that's just where it's going to stay, and I'm going to be happy with it. When you compare, this one's not worn as bad as that other one. Make sure I'm getting it, yep. Not worn as bad as the other one, but the one closer to the splines is the one that, the lip that holds the seal in. This is a double lip seal. The outer lip is for keeping dirt and debris out. And then you got your distance there. So I think it's gonna work just fine. And if not, well, I can make a video of that failing. All right, I'm gonna put this one back because it's for the other side and I don't want to get them confused. And now I need to flip this one over, get the seal in the end here. Get the seal in the end here, put the thrust washer back on, and then it will be ready for installation. There we go, seal. This time the lip facing out towards the outside because there's oil out in the Planetary and grease out here. Now we're ready to start assembling this CV shaft. We've got the inner side greased. So I get her about that far. Person could put the two halves together and try to hold them together and then shove it in, but I find it seems like there's less of a mess doing it this way. Depends on how loose everything is. But let's see, we will get some grease in these where the balls sit. So another advantage of that bushing I've got in there, since it's the same diameter as the roughly the shaft or where the seal goes, it will support the shaft and make it not hang on to the seal while I'm doing this. Okay, when you took it apart, or at least when I took it apart, there's 5 balls. One's a little bit smaller than the others. That's the center ball. I'm using Lucas Red and Tacky for my grease. I think I should be able to get 2 of them in before I put the other part on. I started using it because of these axles. I wanted something good and sticky that would stay stuck to these balls. And it came highly recommended, and so far so good. I've had good luck with it. This is not a paid endorsement. Okay. Got to turn that really sharp to get them balls to load in there. Now we just got to do the other side. Oh, stay in place. There's 4. Come on. There, 5. 5 balls. Everything's where it needs to be. Take my grease gun. Finish filling these areas with grease. This is a time when a cordless grease gun would probably be nice. And my gun's running out. I should have been prepared for that. Oh yeah. All right, got all 4 areas packed with grease. So for the time being, I'm gonna push this in the rest of the way and get it into the differential. And I don't want that shaft wandering out. I should have thought of that sooner. There. I meant for that to happen. My grease gun is empty. What we want to do is pack more in there. So, and then my light needs recharged. The book says to fill the cavity with about 4 pounds of grease. I've basically put 1 tube in already. I'll make the top of this off a little bit. These are 14-ounce tubes. So I find this works pretty good. Just leave the top off. And you can get pretty much all the grease out of there in one swift push. Sure hope I got it all right. We'll put one more in. That'll be the equivalent of, or not quite 4 pounds, but I don't think there could be room for a whole lot more. Let's go down there. So the short and skinny of it is fill it up with grease. Got a layer of silicone on that flange. Seal that. Some of these have a notch in them. I always point that notch down, and that's kind of a drain hole type thing. Just a little bit on the seal and on the, well, on the thrust. I think it's going to get some. That'll hold it. Well, these holes are through holes again, so don't want to forget to shield them. Just making sure the holes lined up good enough where it's going to start before I start. I guess that gets it rolling. So I'm going to put, since these are through holes, put a little silicone on the threads. Put this dirt shield on and install. I've got it suspended from the cherry picker, maybe a little too much. That way it couldn't tip over. And I just slid the gear on the end here, the sun gear, just to make sure everything's turning nice and smooth. And it does. Hardly any wiggle in that. I like that. Okay, time for the seal in the hub. Versus, like so many things, wheels type things, the bearing's got to go in before the seal. Trying to find a driver and decided this would work. A bearing flange for a disc. At least we're going to hope it works. Looks good to me. Let's get her on there. I've got this on the cherry picker because I was only born with 2 hands. This is why it's nice to have the extra set of hands that the cherry picker makes. Let it down just a skosh. Oops. There she goes. Unlike most wheels, the larger bearing's on the outside on this one. Okay, we got rust wash or a washer. That goes there. Oh, let's see. This ain't a perfect match, but it's close enough. Better than whacking it with a chisel. Book says about 35 pounds of spring pull. You put a string and come over the top and pull in a straight line with a spring scale thing. I'm going to say more. That includes seal drag when they say that. More. Got to get down there now. Oh yeah. Still doesn't feel like that much pull. That works. There, just need to fold over a tab or two. That should keep her from going anywhere. It's the rust washer. Got the notches facing in. Sun gear. And the snap ring. There she goes. Something about these bolts that go into the cover aren't just any old bolt. They're 5/8, but they have a long shoulder that's the right length. And when they're in there far enough, that shoulder, the threads are actually countersunk and it engages into this a little bit, because until that outer hub is on with the Planet gears, there's nothing to transfer power from here to here. Those gears turning in here drive the outer hub, and then these bolts are what moves the power all to there. So want to use their grade 8. They got the right shoulder, so don't lose them. But blind holes, so you don't have to worry about sealing those up in any way. Just screw them in. I do have a silicone sealant. There's no gasket. Just a nice thin layer of silicone on there to seal the cover. That's all they call for. Doesn't matter which set of holes it goes into. The Planet gears felt good. No looseness in them. No noises or anything like that, so I didn't bother tearing them apart. Now just to get them all the teeth lined up. There we go. Almost. Well, that's interesting. Why won't you go in? Everything seems to be in order. Get all them teeth to engage at the right time. There, maybe. There we go. Just a matter of having everything lined up all at the right time. And just turn that until we get the bolt hole lined up. And put all them in. Well, I'd say that side is done, and I would put oil in it, but I remember now I robbed the breather. Well, this one has a breather. Herman had an oiler from a crawler in place of a breather. So I robbed this one out for now. I got a new one coming, but not gonna put oil in until I got the breather replaced. That's one side. I'm not gonna put the steering cylinders on because it's gonna get paint, and easier to paint them when they're retracted and not on there, so we'll wait on that. Tie rod will eventually get on, but I wanna get the other side together. So I might as well get started on that. I will probably do that in a time lapse because, well, I'm running low on memory on the GoPro and it's identical to this side, so kind of rehashing. I'll see how long it takes me to do it. Grrr. This is the Agco one. Now granted, it's got a pick date of June of 2002. So it's a 20-year-old piece of rubber. And it did not have the elasticity that new one I got from the place in Idaho. So the downside of using old parts. But it gave up and split. Maybe if I'd used a screwdriver or something and a little more finesse and some lube. Grr. By the way, that part number, 155-324A, looking to fill it up about halfway. Oop. There, I've got her blocked up where it's more level. Seems to be stable there too. Seems to be. I won't put my toes under it. So we're just watching for oil at about the halfway mark. Oop, there she is. I'd say that's it. Dope up this plug, and then we can fill the center section, which is going to be a lot easier without the frame and stuff on, because that's this plug here, and there's between the cylinders being in and the cylinder shield, it's kind of a bear to get to, so it's not going to be bad now. Full. I used one of these suction things. Works pretty good. Not terribly fast with ADW90, but gets the job done. Want to fill it up to where it's just at the bottom of the hole there, just drizzling out, so I can cap that off. As far as oil goes, I've got that one filled, both the hubs filled now. Generally, between them and the transfer case, if you're doing all of them, you might as well just buy a 5-gallon bucket. It uses pretty much all of it. That center differential area takes a couple of gallons at least. They're close to a gallon on each side. So, and that only takes about a quart or two on the transfer case. So 5 gallons, just the way to get it. There we have it. No leaks at the seals. That's always a good thing. Got it set up under there just to get it out of the way for now. I still have to still have to get the subframe on here, but I put that in an electrolysis tank and need to wash that off before I mount it. I've got some footage from my machinist making new pins and bushings for that, so we'll put all that in another video. As always, I appreciate everybody watching, and I hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you in the next one.